So how often do you come to Los Angeles?
I think, I don't know, I've been, what can it be? I'm not sure about the number, but it could probably be around 15, 20 times. But I've sadly not been here for more than, I think the max is like 10 days, 14 days once. But normally it's probably like a few days. I would love to be here and actually get the chance to, it's a different thing when you get to get a feel of a town.
And you've been often in promo mode. I mean, you're sitting in a hotel room talking to people like me and going to parties and being social.
Well, that's pretty privileged to get to do that. Actually, the one time when I had 2 days off, I drove with a few friends to Vegas for one day just to see that. So that I did when I had 2 days off. But
Did you make any money?
No, it was the first time in my life I played that night, and I actually almost came back split even with the hotel room and the food that I ate that night.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
But I think that was beginner's luck, and now I'm not allowed to try it once again because then that's not going to be the same thing.
Well, I'm beginning to have the sense. I mean, we talked on A Royal Affair, and I was looking up what you'd done since then, and I counted 14 films. Is that possible? It's since 2012.
Is it that? It could, yeah. I don't know.
And I
with the films that maybe come out that year.
Exactly. You had
that
done many of them before.
Yeah.
You must have.
I think it was over 4 or 5 years maybe.
So you've been very much in demand. I mean, you just shot out like a rocket. And I'm wondering, now that you've had this experience under your belt, what is the ideal conditions for you doing your best work in a movie?
That's interesting. It's a new question. It's cool. I think being able to, I really think that I really enjoy the fact of getting almost like a tunnel vision of the work and almost close off. I think if I'm not filming or working, I really love to be really social and travel if I can, or see my family or friends. But I think I don't think I very normally don't do things. Like as soon as I have a day off, I get out and do an activity. But when I work, I kind of going away and maybe if it's preparation for 2 weeks, be in a little house and just drink tea and read books and Google, find information. I don't know what it is, but that kind of giving myself some time and space and sleep is probably, which really sounds like essentials, I guess.
How much has your experience as a dancer given you a kind of drive and discipline that has served you well?
I think it's what I've taken with me as much now when I don't dance, and in one way because I tried out for theatre school twice, but I didn't get in. So in one way, the ballet education will always be my artistic education. But even though I don't dance anymore, I think the body awareness, of course, that I can use unconsciously or knowingly in a film, but already when you start when you're 9 years old, you knew as a group of girls and boys that you kind of had to do the work. So I think growing up with that is something that I actually went back to my school in Stockholm about a year ago. I hadn't been there since I was, it's almost 8, 9 years. But it was interesting when I saw the students there, and I kind of felt like I could see that the drive that they had. I was like, wow, I really wanted to go up and thank my teachers, because I said that drive is something that has been a gift, really, I think.
So this movie required a lot of digging and research into the real Gerda, into the one, am I saying her name right? Gerda. She's a remarkable woman, and I wondered if you could describe how you and the screenwriter and the director moved her into the future a little bit?
Well, I think... Well, it's interesting because I think it's moving into the future or just realizing what kind of aspects that she must have had that is very modern, for, especially for that couple to go through what they did in a time when there was no reference of what Lily goes through in her transitioning. And I think it was more like finding whatever we thought was that modern woman, maybe also, like you said, for a modern audience to relate to her. And one of those things was, of course, that she was an artist, but she was also a working woman in the 1920s, and in one way that is just a huge thing. And when we went back and found photos of her and Gerda and Lily, I was quite... I mean, this was before you could take photos wherever you go on Instagram, of course, and all of that, but you knew that it had to be an effort to go and take a photograph. And I loved how them as artists, which I guess also kind of made them quite open and interested in versatility and culture and differences, and how they kind of posed and how they tried out different fashion and outfits, and also her art. She did art of sometimes quite erotic art of women in a time when that must have been very, very out there to go and do that.
How similar are the paintings in the movie to the ones that she actually did?
It's quite extraordinary to see how the artists that we had working on it. I actually know this was a story that Tom told me on a Q&A the other day that I hadn't heard when we were filming. And apparently he, like many other directors, really, really, of course, he was like, no, it's my everything, I need to have the original paintings. And they said, we don't have the budget, we can't do that. And people started to travel around Europe and collectors and private, homes trying to find those paintings. And finally one of the people sat down and was like, you've realized, Tom, right, that the paintings don't actually look like Eddie. And he was like totally blown away. I was like, right. So then of course we had I think they did them over a month, only 4 weeks, all the paintings that we have in the film, where it's the paintings when Gerda and Lily when she painted them together, and all the paintings that she did of Lily as a muse as well, and we actually, and Eddie even more, he sat and posed for all those paintings. So it was quite remarkable to see what looked like her art in real paintings, but with Eddie as Lily's face come through.
One of the things I noticed was that you were very practical about putting your apron on and protecting your clothing, and Eddie was like painting with his full outfit.
But he was it's probably because I think Gerda's really messy, so she kind of knows that she better put it on because it's all gonna go everywhere. And I know that Eddie and I kind of discussed that with Tom in rehearsals as well, how when you find a character and also the physicality of them and how they move and how they are, and Gerda seemed like she has an incredible energy and force to her, and that if you see it in the film, her corner when she paints, it's like paint everywhere, and it's a lot of clutter, and there's a lot of paintings up on the wall, and when you look at Lilia's Einar's corner, everything is in nice little neat rows, and it's something about that I thought Eddie did so beautifully, and how he almost kind of embodied that thing of being very strict and almost not letting her own personality out, and then everything instead was about painting all those little fine trees and specific things in his painting, and feeling everything just felt very contained.
I found it fascinating that while your character was blossoming in many ways and finding her voice, almost by painting Lily and finding Lily, he was losing his voice as an artist while he was finding his voice as a person.
Yeah, I think we discussed that, and I also love the scenes because I could totally understand. Gerda has a scene in the end when she says, well, why don't you paint? I know that you used to love that. And I thought that was a very good question. And also a question because it doesn't matter the change. It's still the same person. And that's also something that she points out in the scene when Lily as Einar refers as, well, you were married to Einar, and she was like, no, really, it was you and me. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing, and I think it's more. And then both Eddie and I met people who have transitioned, and what you also realize is that every single story is different because it's human beings. But I asked that question about why would you lose? Do you think that Lily loved to paint even before? And they said maybe it's just a tough thing because you want to be able to embody what you find the truth, and that is such a tough journey. That one of the things that Lily maybe had to do to be able to do that was to make a cleaner cut.
It just seemed interesting the way, perhaps because of the period, each of you were embodying different aspects of femininity. You were being more, I know I've used the word before, but just for lack of a better way of explaining it, more masculine and aggressive and assertive, and he was being more feminine and more in a sort of classic gender identification way, if that makes any sense.
No, I'm happy in a way, so because that was a lot of what we worked and played around with already at rehearsals. Because I think if anything, this film has been extremely educational, and also in the sense that I just don't think I've probably put that much time into thinking about gender before. And because of this film, I've also realized that it is the spectrum is so wide, and I have a hard time to know where to put myself on that scale, and how much I even tried to be as masculine as I tried. It was Tom who pointed that out. He was like, yeah, but no one's going to come up to you and say, well, that's not female. Because we're just, in society, we're just brought up with assuming that is just what it is, because whatever they see on the outside is female. So it was fun to play around and see what Eddie and I could exchange in whatever we would consider to be male or female mannerisms.
No, I love that, and also the way that you expressed yourselves with sex, which is a challenge ordinarily, but you obviously thought everything through quite a bit in terms of, I'm just being simplistic, but who's on top or you thought those things through.
We did talk about, and it's always with making those kind of scenes, it's always quite tough because everyone's nervous, and you also, with the story, knew that is a big part of a relationship. So you wanted to, and it's also a very interesting scene because it's a scene in this film where Lily as Einar has borrowed Gerda's slip. And I remember when I read it, and it's just when she actually opens up a button, and you know that she sees that slip. And I remember as a reader, and I also hopefully wanted to give that, feeling in the performance for the audience of not knowing where it was gonna go now, because now a big change is happening, and that scene was very, very interesting to shoot.
It's my favorite part of the movie because it's very positive. There's something expressive and explorative and experimental, and you're right, it's unpredictable, and it's not like we know where it's going to go. I love that.
And it kind of also has to be, because in the end, even it is a very tough journey that they're both on, but in the end, it needs to be that it all is done because of somebody really, really longing for and enjoying being given the possibility to truly become themselves, and for somebody to see that and want to support that.
Well, we all have a lot to learn about this, I think. I'm not alone in that regard. So you had an amazing year. You did Ex Machina, you did The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It's like those two movies coexisted.
Yeah, very different from also Danish Girl. Very different films.
And then you have coming up the Bourne sequel. Where are
I'm
you
shooting
on?
it
Is
right
that
now.
what you're away from?
Because we went DC yesterday. few
You
more
had a
days.
presidential thing.
Yeah, well, he was
Not
because
there.
no, it's sad enough because what's going on in the world. But it was pretty extraordinary being there yesterday. I was very moved to have that you have a president who is the first one to actually use the word transgender, who brings this community in and acknowledge and honour people in the transgender community for what they do in media and film. I thought that I was allowed to be in that room was pretty extraordinary.
Cool. Did you see Tangerine?
I haven't, but Maya, the lead actress, I hung out with her yesterday. I'm so longing for seeing that film.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It got some indie spirits today. It did very well. And The Light Between the Oceans?
Yes.
Where are you on that?
It's in, I quite recently saw an edit in New York with Derek. So that's coming out next year.
That's an incredible cast.
Yes, it is. And Derek is an amazing. I was a huge fan of both Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines, and he was really one of those directors that I dreamt to meet. So it was. He works like every director. It's very special, but it was a very new way of filming.
Can you describe it?
Well, he's very much. First of all, he never says action or stop. So I remember in the beginning, I very many times found myself. I think everyone else is acting now, so I better stop doing that as well. But also that he kind of creates a world where it's not improvisation, because you actually in the end do the scene and the words that were written. But we were in this house, and the actors. If you make a cup of tea, you actually do go and make a cup of tea, or you go out in the garden and you chop down, and you go to the chickens and you get your eggs, and you go and take care of the horses. And I had never tried to milk a goat, but I had to try and do that. Things like that whilst making the scene makes it a very. We often did takes. We didn't use film, but we did use digital, and I think those memory cards are about 45 minutes. So I think we did about. I was told this afterwards in the editor room. The editor looked at me, and Derek just like shook his head, but he said, "Yeah, it was about 5 hours of footage every day."
So some actors are used to that. Did you enjoy it? Did you cotton to it?
I really, in one way, I felt it was quite liberating. I felt a bit like I really got to play. And also in the film, this young girl has a very big part. She's 4 years old, and she's 4 years old in real life too, and it was pretty extraordinary. And to give him the chance to work with something so giving and unpredictable, and she was pretty amazing.
I look forward. Now, the other one I saw footage from that I thought looked good, and it's coming out next year, is from the Weinstein Co. You were in Cannes to promote it, Tulip Fever.
Yes.
What's the status of that? They've been in the edit room on that one.
Yes, they've been in the edit. So all I know is that hopefully it's going to come out. That was the first time I saw a little clip when we were in Cannes, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing it.
And that's Dane DeHaan, right?
Yes,
as the young
incredible
man.
actor.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw him in In Treatment. Both him and Mio Wasikowska a few years later. When I was back in Sweden, I was like, wow, I really was very impressed.
So I'm looking forward to that as well. And congrats on Testament of Youth, because I think that was actually an amazing lead performance from you. Now, how do you feel about these conversations about lead versus supporting?
In one way, I kind of, if in one way, I'm not in that conversation myself, because being considered for anything is kind of, I guess, up to everyone else but me.
It's a good political answer, but Testament of Youth, that was a major role. You're carrying the whole movie.
Yeah, that was.
And you did carry it.
It was
remarkably well.
It was tough. It was a very intense shoot. We shot it in 7 weeks, and it was my first kind of English part, and also it was quite nerve-wracking.
You have a British accent, though.
It's changed since I did that film. Oh,
Your English has become more British.
yeah.
Interesting, because it
If
strikes
you- it was
me, speaking
edgy.
to you today, I have to say, you do sound more British than you did when I first met you.
So it's that thing of being foreign. Maybe I'll come back, and if we do this one other time, maybe I'll come back and have an Americanized accent. I don't know. Actually Eddie in the makeup trailer one morning. He came in and he's like, Alicia, he's like, so strange. He was like, maybe it was our interview. He was like, I googled you last night. I was like, oh really? Okay. He was like, yeah, I watched an interview with you, and you sounded so American. What happened? And I was like, I guess it's just the thing because you learn English later, and you like if I would go back to Sweden and I went to another city, I would still have the same accent I had where I was born, because that's just my culture and what I grew up with.
But this is how naive I am. I said to Saoirse Ronan, I said, it must have been really great to